You're listening to The Jacob Valk Show. He's breaking down the latest and greatest in sports as only he can. Follow him on Twitter at RealJacobValk. Here he is, Jacob Valk.
Welcome to another edition of the Jacob Valk Show. I am the Jacob Valk, and you're not. I am going to start with hockey, but I'm not going to start with a Stanley Cup Finals preview. I don't think that's the right way to start. I think the right way to start is to talk about how the Lightning got there. Specifically, what happened in Game 7. Islanders Lightning, for all the marbles. I can honestly say that I have never been more locked into a hockey game than that game. A Game 7 with a Stanley Cup Finals berth on the line. That's something I've never experienced before. This is a new experience for us. Now, what did I say on Friday? Regardless of what happens, this season is a success. It is. No one expected the Islanders to make it here. Back-to-back Stanley Cup semifinals appearances? Are you kidding me? I can't tell you how many times I heard people say that last year was a fluke. It was just because of the bubble. The Islanders aren't a good team. And you know what? Through most of the season, they weren't. They didn't play like a team that you thought would go on a deep playoff run. Going up against the Penguins, I picked Pittsburgh. Going up against the Bruins, I picked Boston. I didn't have much faith in this team. I did say that I thought they had a decent chance against the Penguins, but I didn't think they'd win. So in a sense, the Islanders were playing with house money, but that doesn't excuse that crappy, dismal performance in Game 7. The Islanders came out flat. They didn't play with a sense of urgency until they needed to. You're not going to win a Game 7 like that. The Lightning did the right thing. They kept the forecheck up. They were extremely aggressive. The Islanders had a tough time entering the Lightning zone, and then the Lightning got a shot on Varlamov. Semyon Varlamov deserves a ton of credit for keeping the Islanders in that game. That one goal that was scored was not on him. It was on the dismal Islanders power play. Only one goal gets scored in a Game 7. And it's a shorthanded goal. It's a shorthanded goal that in all essence was a breakaway for Yanni Gourde. Only the freaking Islanders could have that. You go on a power play, the only power play in the game. This is it. This is your moment to get some pressure on Vasilevsky. Barclay Goodrow takes a cross-checking penalty early in the second period. Seize the moment. You have the momentum at this point. Score a goal. Get in the driver's seat. Instead, no one picks up Yanni Gourde as he's changing. As he's jumping on the ice, no one picks him up. Look, brilliant pass by Anthony Cirelli. Great block by Ryan McDonough to set that up. I understand that. but you give up a short-handed goal in a Game 7 because the Islanders' power play unit couldn't pick up the changing Yanni Gourde. I'm sorry. That's a tough way to lose. That leaves a bad taste in your mouth if it's only one goal scored. And that's the way you score it. That leaves a bad taste in your mouth if you're an Islanders fan. How's this for a stat? The Islanders played 4 games at Amalie Arena. They got shut out in half of them. What was the knock on this team all year? That they don't have the offense necessary to go on a big playoff run. Hell, even when they were down in Game 6, you got the sense that the Islanders weren't going to score 3 goals. But they did. The offense showed up when it needed to. A 5-3 win in Game 6 against the Penguins. A 6-2 win in Game 6 against the Bruins. With this team's back against the wall, you actually had faith in them. They won the must-win games in the Penguins series. They won the must-win games in the Bruins series. This series, they didn't. They lost 2 of them. Game 5 was a must-win game. They got blown out of the building. And Game 7, you get shut out. You only get 18 shots on net. 18 shots against Andrei Vasilevsky. Only 11 of them through 2 periods. Don't you have the sense that the Islanders are just playing afraid? They didn't want to make a mistake? Well, they did. They made a pretty big one. Gave up a breakaway on a power play. There was no sense of urgency until the 3rd period. It's great if you're going to play defense-first hockey. That's fine. Play boring hockey, but you've got to be able to turn it on offensively when you need to. The Islanders didn't. You know who led the Islanders in shots on goal in Game 7? Casey Cizikas, the 4th-line center. All due respect to Cizikas. I like Cizikas. Good player. I want him back. He cannot lead the Islanders in shots on goal in a Game 7. It's got to be Barzy. It's got to be Eberle. It's got to be Peugeot. It's got to be one of the killer bees. Not the freaking 4th-line center. I mean, the season was a success, but for the love of God, that's how you go out? A 1-0 loss in a Game 7. No one steps up. I mean, they gave me a fun ride. There were some iconic moments. The Pollock shot block in Game 4. Anthony Beauvillier scoring in overtime in Game 6. The Islanders faithful throwing stuff on the ice. I'll say this, the Islanders fans showed up more than the Lightning fans. You know what was given out at Game 7 at Amalie Arena? Noisemakers. The Lightning had to make a concerted effort to get their crowd fired up. And you know what? Through parts of that game, the arena was dead. That wasn't the case at the Coliseum. To lose that way in a Game 7 with a Stanley Cup Finals berth on the line, something that this team hasn't had in 37 years, is just tough. It's a very tough way to lose. You try not to let it negate all the good that came out of this year. But it's tough to have not scored a goal in Florida since Game 2. A meaningless goal by Barzell to make it 4-2 with under 4 minutes left in the third period. I mean, that's tough. It's tough to lose a game where all you need is one goal to force overtime, and then God only knows what happens. Game 6 went to overtime. The Islanders dominated. Again, this was a successful season, by far and away. I had a friend tell me that if the Islanders had lost this series in 4 or 5 games, this series would have been a failure. No! Are you nuts? Have you completely lost your mind? Do you realize what the Islanders did by even getting here? They proved that last year wasn't a fluke. They are one of the best teams in the NHL. They are really close to winning a Stanley Cup. You can't tell me that it's impossible for the Islanders to open up UBS Arena with a Stanley Cup. It's going to be hard. There's no question. They're not going to have a ton of cap flexibility. They may lose a really good defenseman in the expansion draft. Who do you want to lose, Scott Mayfield or Nick Leddy? It's tough. I'll give you my answer on Wednesday night. That's when you're going to get my New York Islanders off-season preview. You're getting a Yankees show tonight, and I have a prior engagement tomorrow. So, Wednesday night, New York Islanders off-season preview. And just to put a finer point on this, I know I've said this previously, I'll say it again. Next week, July 5th to July 9th, no show. My vacation is a go. And I am excited about it, I'll say that. I was looking forward to an Islanders Stanley Cup run. That would have been really nice, but if the alternative is seeing Mount Rushmore and a bunch of other places, I can live with that. Again, I would have preferred the Cup run. If given the choice between going to see Mount Rushmore, a place that I've wanted to see ever since I was a little kid, or seeing the New York Islanders play in the Stanley Cup Finals for the first time in my lifetime, I'm picking the Islanders. But again, just to put a finer point on it, next week, July 5th to July 9th, there will be no episodes of the Jacob Valk Show. But now it's time to preview the Stanley Cup Finals. If the Habs are going to win this, it's going to be because of one guy and one guy only. You don't need me to say this, but I'll say it anyway. It's Carey Price. Price dominated in Games 6 and 7 of the Leaf series. Dominated throughout the Jets series. Dominated in the Golden Knights series. Make no mistake about it. He's the hottest goalie in the NHL right now. And what's the saying? All you need is a hot goalie. That's a correct saying. That phrase has legs. So with that being said, you can't tell me that the Habs don't have a shot here. I mean, what an improbable run. If you really boil it down to the ground, this is one of the most surprising championship runs in modern sports history. The Canadiens finished last in the North Division. They were under 500. They finished 24, 21, and 11. They lost 5 straight games to close out the season. No one outside of Quebec thought that they'd beat the Leafs in the first round. And when the Leafs went up 3-1, forget about it. There's no way the Habs are coming back, right? But the Habs scratch and claw their way back into that series. Nick Suzuki, who's been a revelation in these playoffs, forces Game 6. The Habs have a 3-0 lead in that game. They blow it. Then less than a minute into overtime, Nick Suzuki wins it. Unreal. Game 6. The Leafs are by far and away the better team. They make some stupid mistakes, but when they buckle down, they actually play well enough to win. They force overtime. They get 13 shots on Carey Price. He stands on his head. Jesperi Kotkaniemi wins in overtime. Forces an all-or-nothing Game 7 in Toronto. Price stands on his head. Gives up a meaningless goal to William Nylander late. Incredible performance. They destroy the Jets, who had destroyed the Oilers. They were on a big high. The way the Jets played in that series, and the way the Canadiens played in their series, you had to think the Jets had an edge, right? No, Canadiens swept them. Then you go to the U.S. for the first time all year. The dichotomy is unreal. Raucous Vegas crowd, a Habs crowd that's doing its best, but there are just less people in the arena. So the Golden Knights had home ice advantage by far and away. Really wasn't even close. Price stands on his head, only has one game where he gives up more than 2 goals. This has been a miraculous cup run. The Canadiens had a negative goal differential. They were one of only 2 teams in the Stanley Cup Playoffs with a negative goal differential. The other team was the St. Louis Blues. They got swept. They got crushed by the Avalanche. I mean, just to put a finer point on it, the Blues' goal differential this year was -1. Could have gone either way. The Habs' goal differential this year was -9. Not terrible. But if you wanted to make the argument that the Habs were the worst team in these playoffs before it got started, you could have made that argument. The Habs had the fewest number of points out of any team in these Stanley Cup playoffs. You know what their number was? 59. The New York Rangers and the Dallas Stars both finished with more points than the Canadiens this year. The Habs were not a good team. In no way, shape, or form should they be here. But this is a masterful job by Carey Price. A great job by Dominique Ducharme. A great job by Luke Richardson, who's taken over for Ducharme since he has the coronavirus. The Habs are a force to be reckoned with. Make no mistake about that. It is very possible that they can beat this high-octane Lightning offense. What's the one thing that shuts down a great offense? A great defense. The Islanders had that. And they came really, really close. The Lightning only had 2 games in this series. Games 2 and 5. Where they scored more than 2 goals. Make no mistake about it. Game 5 was a horror show and Game 7 was a tough loss. But The Islanders did a great job against the Lightning. They were very close to winning that series. So what can the Lightning do? How can they prevent themselves from losing this series? Pretty simple. Number one, seize on Montreal's mistakes. Go back to Game 6. Anthony Beauvillier seized upon the Blake Coleman mistake, scored the last goal in Nassau Coliseum history. Game 7, the Lightning penalty kill seized on the Islanders' power play. A power play unit that always makes mistakes. Jim Hiller needs to go. No one picks up Yanni Gourde. Only goal of the game. Every team is going to make a mistake. It's up to you to capitalize on it. And you can force those mistakes, too. With a strong forecheck, you can force bad passes, you can force turnovers, and then you just constantly put the puck on net. Maybe, just maybe, you'll get Carey Price to blink. That plays into my second key. Shoot, shoot, shoot. Do not always look for the perfect shot. Put pucks on net. You never know what'll happen. There were goals that Price gave up in the Golden Knights series that you just rubbed your eyes like, how did he give that up? Put pucks on net, get a strong forecheck going, and force mistakes. That's how the Lightning will win. I've heard some people say that this series is going to be a rout. The Lightning are going to win in like 4 or 5 games. I don't see that. I think the Lightning are going to win, but Carey Price is good enough to make them work. This is going to be a great series. It's going to be a competitive series. You're going to be on the edge of your seat. I don't foresee any blowouts. Lightning in 6. And let me just say this. You can't tell me that the NBA has more juice than the NHL does. With the Stanley Cup Finals underway, if you're a sports fan, if you're a hockey fan and a basketball fan, you've got to be more invested in the Stanley Cup Finals, right? Unless your team is still alive in the NBA, how can you get into these series? I'm having a really tough time watching the NBA right now. I mean, the way the Yankees are playing, I'll probably watch the NBA over them, but I'll take the Stanley Cup Finals over both of them. I mean, I'll get to the NBA now. I'll give you some Valk talk on the 2 series, Bucks-Hawks, to start with. Have you been into it? Seriously, like, I know very few people that are into this series. I mean, Game 2 was a joke. Give the Bucks credit. After losing a close game at home, they blow the Hawks out in Game 2. So you leave Milwaukee with a split. Not the greatest thing in the world, but it's better than being down 0-2. Game 3 was a good game. Don't get me wrong. It was an exciting game, but didn't you just feel like it was lacking some intrigue? I understand the notion of, if you're a diehard basketball fan, you'll watch the playoffs regardless of who's playing. I understand that, but you're looking at it in a bubble, though. You're making the assumption that there's nothing except basketball on. You have the Stanley Cup Finals to deal with now. Like, Clippers-Suns is tonight. The Suns have an opportunity to make the NBA Finals tonight. But the Stanley Cup Finals are getting underway. I'm more interested in Canadiens Lightning, an original six team versus a team that won the Cup last year? Sign me up. Sign me up for that over a series where the best player on either team isn't playing. There's more juice around the NHL than there is the NBA. There's no question about that. I'm going to tell you why the Bucks are up in this series. The Bucks are up because they have more players that can kill you offensively. They have Giannis, they have Chris Middleton, and they have Jrue Holiday. Holiday played great in Game 2. Middleton played great in Game 3. You look at what the Hawks did in those games. Game 2, everyone no-showed. Trae Young was the high man with just 15 points. Game 3, Young had 35 points. That's fantastic, but who else was helping him? Danilo Gallinari? I like Gallinari, but he can't be the second best player on a team that's going to make the NBA Finals. John Collins wasn't great. Clint Capella wasn't good. Kevin Huerter wasn't great. Bogdan Bogdanovic no-showed. Trae Young needs help. He can't do it all by himself. Especially when you factor in the fact that Chris Middleton had the game of his life in Game 3. He did not play well in Game 1, and he did not play well in Game 2. Game 3, he really needed to step up, and he was the high man. He had 38 points, 11 rebounds, and 7 assists. Was by far and away the best player on the floor. Giannis did his thing. I'm not knocking Giannis. But I give Chris Middleton a ton of credit. He stepped up when his team needed him to, unlike Paul George. I'll get into George in a minute, but give the Bucks credit for getting their other players involved. We know that Giannis is going to get his no matter what. But Jrue Holiday stepped up in Games 1 and 2. Chris Middleton stepped up in Game 3. Bobby Portis has been really good coming off the bench in this series. Brook Lopez has done his thing. The Bucks look like the better team by far. Alright, now I'll get to Suns Clippers, specifically how bad Paul George is. You're facing, in essence, a do-or-die game. There's no chance on this earth that you're going to come back from 3-1 down. I admire Chris Paul for not taking anything for granted, but the Suns have this series pretty well in hand. The Clippers needed a win on Saturday, and they see their best player absolutely no-show. 5 for 20 from the field. 1 for 9 from beyond the arc. You know what the most consistent offense for the Clippers was? Paul George being fouled. Even then, though, he missed 6 of his free throws. And if he hits those, or just misses 1, hell, even 2, the Clippers may win this game. I mean, what a dismal performance by George. Bad job by Reggie Jackson. I'll say this, I don't blame him for taking more shots than Paul George. You don't want George taking a lot of shots. He's not that good in the playoffs. I mean, Jackson wasn't much better. 8 for 24 from the field and 2 for 9 from beyond the arc. That's not good. But I understand Jackson wanting to take over. The reality is, without Kawhi Leonard, the Clippers didn't have much of a chance in this series. Yes, they beat the Jazz in Games 5 and 6, but that's 2 games. I'm talking about a best-of-7 series. When Kawhi was hurt, the series was down to a best 2 out of 3. George needed to step up in a best 4 out of 7, and he didn't. I give the Suns credit. They're a really well-rounded team. Devin Booker's one of the best young players in the league. Chris Paul has been absolutely invaluable to that team in terms of his leadership, getting the offense initiated. He's exactly what they needed. Great job by James Jones in trading for him. DeAndre Ayton has been a revelation this year. There's no question about that. I saw this on Elias Sports Bureau's Twitter account. Ayton is shooting 70.9% on his 151 field goal tries this postseason. That's the best field goal percentage in NBA history in a single postseason out of anyone who's attempted a minimum of 150 field goals. You know who's second? James Worthy. In 1985, he shot 62.2%. So Ayton is annihilating James Worthy right now. It's not even close. He's beating him by 8.7%. That's insane. He's dominating the interior. Mikal Bridges and Jay Crowder are doing their things defensively. Cameron Payne is doing his best to be a spark plug off the bench, but he's not 100% right now. The one thing I'll say about the Suns is you do need to look at this postseason run with a grain of salt. The first round against the Lakers, LeBron James and Anthony Davis weren't 100%. The second round against the Nuggets, no Jamal Murray. The third round against the Clippers, no Kawhi Leonard. I understand that's not the Suns' fault. Alright, they can only beat the team that's put in front of them. I get that. And I'm not trying to take anything away from the Suns. That's a tortured fan base. This is the first time they've been in the playoffs since 2010. They're on the verge of making their first NBA Finals since 1993. I'm not trying to take anything away from the Suns. What I'm trying to say is they're not a powerhouse. Through the luck of the draw, they've been matched up against teams that haven't been at 100%. And they've been capitalizing on it. Give them full credit. But it makes me upset as a Nets fan, because if we were looking at a Nets-Suns NBA Finals, the Nets would sweep the Suns. If you're a Sixers fan, the Sixers would sweep the Suns. In fact, I'll even go as far as to say that whatever team loses the Eastern Conference Finals, the Bucks or the Hawks, would beat the Suns in a 7-game series. The Suns are a really good team, but they're not great. They've taken advantage of a Western Conference that's really been besieged by injuries. LeBron, AD, Jamal Murray, and Kawhi Leonard. It's tough for me to get really excited about them, especially when you factor in the fact that in Game 4, they scored just 84 points. They shot 36% from the field and 20% from beyond the arc. They're not a juggernaut. Like I said, the NBA has no juice right now. I'll close this show out by talking about the Trailblazers hiring Chauncey Billups to be their next head coach. A hire that seems to have ruffled some feathers for some weird reason. I mean, I'll tell you why it's ruffled some feathers, and when I tell you, you'll say, Jacob, that's not weird, but when I explain the context, you'll say it's weird. People are upset that the Blazers hired Billups because in 1997, Billups, along with Ron Mercer and Antoine Walker's roommate, sexually assaulted a woman at Walker's condo. That's bad, right? Here's the context, though. This isn't breaking news. This has been out there for years, for decades even. It went through the criminal justice system. No criminal charges were filed. But Billups and Mercer in 2000 settled a civil suit. So, just to be clear, this was over and done with in 2000. Before Billups went to the Pistons, won an NBA title, won Finals MVP, made 5 All-Star teams, made 3 All-NBA teams, and made 2 All-Defensive teams. This was before he went to ESPN. This was before he went to the Clippers. This was out there. This was settled. This is over and done with. Now, God only knows what really happened to that woman. I'm not trying to minimize what happened to her. Okay, it's clear something happened or else there wouldn't have been a settlement. Some people settle just to put the matter behind them, but it doesn't seem like that's what happened here. Look, if your point is going to be that rapists shouldn't have a job, I am all for that. Okay, I'm with you there. That's not a mistake. That's a heinous act. That's one of the worst things that you can do. But we were okay with Billups playing point guard. We were okay with him winning award after award after award. We were okay with him going to ESPN, being mentioned as a candidate for GM posts, then going to the Clippers. We were okay with that. But when he gets to the Trailblazers as their head coach, no, that's where we draw the line. That's what I don't get. I mean, my argument isn't even he paid the settlement, this is over and done with. Let's let him live his life. No, there are some unforgivable things that people can do. I'm with you there. I fully understand that. It's inexcusable, but we don't know exactly what happened here. This happened 24 years ago. This has been adjudicated. This is over and done with. If you're going to let him keep playing basketball, and you're going to let him go to ESPN, and let him be an assistant coach for the Clippers, why wouldn't you let him be a head coach for the Blazers? Where was the outrage in 2004? Where was the outrage when he was with the Nuggets? When he was traded to the Knicks? When he was hired by ESPN? When he was hired by the Clippers? Why is the outrage starting now? Be consistent. I can't remember one person ever saying that Chauncey Billups shouldn't get this job because of what happened in 1997. Truthfully, I didn't even know that this happened until I saw someone criticize the hire in the Oregonian. So this was out there. Anyone could find this But it wasn't until Billups started getting buzz for the Blazers job that we suddenly get upset over it? I don't get it. What's the point? That you can be a player, a commentator, or an assistant coach with this on your Wikipedia page, but we draw the line at head coach? That's ridiculous. I like this hire. I think it's a good hire. Damian Lillard wanted him. You have to keep him happy. There were two candidates mentioned by Damian Lillard, Jason Kidd and Chauncey Billups. Kidd backed out. Billups didn't, so Billups has to get the job. If your best player publicly endorses someone for the job, you need to hire him. Now there are reports saying that Lillard may be unhappy with the Blazers. He doesn't like the roster. He doesn't like the backlash that the Blazers have received. He may want out. He hasn't asked for a trade yet that we know of. But let me just say this. I agree with Lillard if his point is that the Blazers roster isn't good enough. There's no question. There is no question that this core of C.J. McCollum, Yusuf Nurkic, and Robert Covington, being led by Damian Lillard, isn't going to get the job done. That is 100% correct. Changes do need to be made there. But if he doesn't like the backlash that the Blazers received, why did you endorse this guy for the job? If you didn't want the backlash, why did you say you wanted the Blazers to hire Billups? Why did you say you wanted the Blazers to hire Kidd? Jason Kidd has a checkered past. I hope that's not true. Because then Lillard, in essence, sabotaged the Blazers. He mentioned two people with violence against women on their ledger. We all remember what Jason Kidd did to his first wife, allegedly. But just to be clear, we were okay with him winning a title with the Mavericks, being the head coach of the Nets, and then going to the Bucks. And then resurfacing with the Lakers and the Mavericks. This was never brought up, right? The picking and choosing doesn't work. The Blazers reach out to these two guys, along with others. They kind of have to. They have to conduct a full search. Kidd backs out, so that leaves only one of your preferred candidates in Chauncey Billups. And Billups gets hired. What's your problem? If your problem's with the roster, okay. I understand that. If your problem's with the coaching search, you brought this upon the Blazers. You sabotaged them. I don't know what's true and what isn't. Only Damian Lillard knows for sure. I'll say this, though. We're going to hear Damian Lillard trade rumors all offseason. New York Yankees show comes your way tonight. New York Islanders offseason preview, unfortunately, will come your way on Wednesday night. Regular episodes of the Jacob Valk Show come your way every weekday afternoon. Until next time, I am Jacob Valk saying, win any way you can, as long as you can get away with it.